As we move into this school year, we are going to change the way we plan, not just because the COVID situation has changed the scheduling for school, but because this is also a good practice. And so what we are going to do today is model how we use the standards in a much deeper way to plan much more focused, effective lessons each week. So go ahead and log into FOSS using your credentials and click on the Human Systems Interactions unit. Once you get to the unit, there are two things you want to click on. Click on the PDF-based investigations guide to the left-hand side of the page. And then where it says Teacher Resources, you want to click on Human Systems Interactions Framework and NGSS. So you want to have the PDF investigations guide and the NGSS documents side by side. So if human systems interactions is content that you're not comfortable with or know nothing about, no worries. In the PDF investigations guide, go ahead and turn to page 74, and it'll give you some scientific and historical background. So if you need to or want to kind of read that to set yourself up, please do that first before you start the process that we're going to do next of reading the standards and reading the investigation. On the NGSS page, you want to scroll down to the performance expectations. These are in red. The first thing you want to do is read through the performance expectations very carefully. These tell you what students should be able to do by the time they finish learning all these standards within this unit or many other units in middle school. So go ahead and read the performance expectations and then summarize them in your own words. So as you can see, I went ahead and I summarized those performance expectations for the human systems interactions. My summary is about 3 pages long in my own words to help me internalize what the performance expectations are, so I know exactly what kids need to know by the end of this unit. That stage you just did of internalizing those performance expectations is key. You should not skip that stage because that is really the stage where you process and understand specific things students should learn. As you also noticed, the performance expectations tells you what the assessment boundary is. So it tells you what things we shouldn't be teaching and the kids should not be learning within this standard, which is also a good thing to note. After you've done that, go ahead and keep the NGSS page up. And then go to Investigation 1 of the Human Systems Interactions unit, and Investigation 1 is called Systems Connection. The first investigation has 2 parts. You want to read the entire investigation. Yes, I said it, the entire investigation. So go ahead and read the entire investigation, and as you read, take notes on the different activities that students are doing. Now that you've read it, go ahead and take your notes from your internalization of the standards, right? So right now in front of you, you should have a summary of what the investigation is about, both parts. And then next to that, you should also have your notes on the performance expectation. Once you have this, as you will note in our scope and sequence, you see that every investigation is about a week. So now that you have the standards and you've kind of summarized them and you know what you're supposed to be teaching and you have read the investigation and looked through the activities, go ahead and jot down what a week of activities looks like. What will you do day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So 5 lessons, 1 week, based on what the standards tell you. So what are the specific activities that align with the things that kids need to know according to the standard? Go ahead and try to map out a week of that. Okay, so now that you've done that, here's a sample of how the Human Systems Interactions Investigation 1 was planned out for a full week, focusing on the specific key ideas kids need to know based on what the performance expectations say. So if you take a look at it, it just gives the general activity, and then it gives the performance expectations that align with it, as well as the cross-cutting concepts in science and engineering practices. The cross-cutting concepts in science and engineering practices have numbers because this key was used. So for example, number 1 for cross-cutting concepts means patterns. Number 2 for an SEP means developing and using models. So that's what the numbers mean in that table. So as you can see from this sample, what will most likely happen as we start doing more focused planning based on the key ideas of the standards, and as we understand and learn how to read the performance expectations better. What you'll start to notice is that sometimes you might have to go out of order of the activities, the way the activities are listed in the investigation. Sometimes you might skip or even modify an activity because it's really not getting kids to that key idea of the performance expectation. Or maybe you want to change it to something that's more culturally responsive, or an activity that you think will get our kids to those skills and the content in the performance expectation in a more effective way. And that's completely fine. Again, as you can see, the asterisk parts on days 4 and 5 are activities that reinforce the key ideas, but these are not activities that came from FOSS. These are activities that can be teacher created, or maybe you find a really good interactive activity or assessment on a vetted website or resource that you can use. And that's completely okay to supplement what is in the curriculum, as long as it's still aligned in getting kids to the content and the skills in the performance expectation. And so when we have our content meetings this year, what we will do is flesh out what these activities are. In teams, you will have a discussion about what the main idea and skills are based on the performance expectations. And so it is a new direction in planning, but an even better way, again, for us to know and learn the standards, the NGSS standards, better. We started this a little bit last year with the DDI work, the data-driven work. And so this year we are just expanding upon that and enhancing our content knowledge by planning through a lens of internalizing those performance expectations first, reading the whole investigation, and picking out the activities that really truly focus and align on those big ideas that the performance expectations calls for, and then planning and fleshing out those activities together during our content meeting. So we've done this process together using one of the units in FOSS. So go ahead and go to your first unit. Remember to look at the scope and sequence. It'll tell you what your first unit is, and do the exact same process, right? Go to the NGSS framework document, read it, summarize it in your own words, internalize it, and then go to the very first investigation, read the entire investigation, and then go ahead and plan out what activities you would do for that week, because again, each investigation is a week. And then when we have our first content meeting, we will be in grade level groups, and we can kind of share ideas, discuss as a team, decide on the specific activities, come to a consensus about which activities are truly aligned to the performance expectation, content and skills, and then flesh out the activities from there. So please go ahead and do that, and have your sample weekly plan for that first investigation of your first unit done before we meet for PD. And your first sample can look like the sample table in the video. In the pre-work document activities on the PD website, this template has been provided, as well as instructions that go over everything we just discussed in this video. So go ahead and feel free to use that template. If you don't want to use that template and want to use something else, it's completely fine, but it is okay that your first week looks something as simple as this. And then we will discuss together as a team when we meet on the 31st.